Guys, the video that I've got for y'all today is going to be a kind of long video. I think it's probably going to be just under 30 minutes. But I really want y'all to watch this entire thing, even if you can't do it all in one sitting. It's just something that's been laid on my heart for quite a while now, and it's bothered me. And I just feel like it needs to be addressed, and I just haven't seen it addressed yet, at least not formally. I have so many people come in and out of this shop every deer season, and they're in here with their little kids, you know, and it's granddaddies and their kids, and they're in here. They want to look at all the mounts. They want to pick out what they want done with their deer, and they want to sit here and tell me the story, all about, the hunt, everything that happened. And I just think that this video is really going to kind of drive home some things that I've been thinking, and probably a lot of us have been thinking. And I just really hope that this does somebody some good, and maybe, makes a little bit of a positive spin, a little bit of a positive influence on some of this outdoor community that we've got and that we all love. So y'all enjoy this. What's going on, guys? Welcome to my channel. If y'all don't know me already, my name is Daniel Williams, and this is the Cedar Ridge Chronicles. When I first started this channel, I wasn't too long out of rehab from going to the hospital with an aortic aneurysm. My heart had split nine centimeters, and I was bleeding out internally, had to be rushed to the emergency room. Anyway, long story short, I survived. Everything was great. I kind of turned to social media just for just entertainment purposes, trying to keep my mind off of everything. So since then, we've had a deer season come and pass, and a turkey season, and now, a spring and summer full of fishing. What I started noticing during deer season, and that, I don't know, man, it just ripped my heart out, was watching outdoorsmen battle with one another like we're in this gigantic argument all the time. When I was 12 years old, I killed my first buck. He was a little bitty, small rack 6-point. And at our hunting club, you couldn't kill anything unless it was bigger than a spike. We couldn't shoot spikes. And when that buck come out, it was 180 yards down a food plot, and I put my scope on him, thought I saw forks in his antlers, and shot. Well, when he hit the ground, immediately I start crying. I'm super emotional, losing my mind. And then I get to thinking about, man, what if that was a spike? I can't even remember what I just saw or shot. And anyway, my dad, he comes and shows up not too long after the shot, because he was, hunting right there close. It was the first day I'd ever hunted out of a tree stand, first day I had ever hunted by myself, and first day I had ever hunted with a 30-06 rifle. Well, anyway, my dad comes up, asked me what I shot. I said, I really don't know, it was a buck. And he said, well, it wasn't a spike, was it? And I was like, I don't think so. And he's going, well, what do you mean you don't think so? I was like, well, I don't even remember what happened. So we go out there. The closer we get to the buck, we see an extra point here and there, and all of a sudden, it turns into a 6-point. And my dad, he's freaking out, man, grabs me up, squeezing me, slinging me around, and actually busts my nose. Like, he's hugging me so hard, my nose is like bleeding all over myself. But didn't even feel the pain of it. You know what I mean? It was just being involved in that moment right there. One of my greatest memories of all time in my whole life. After we got that deer loaded up on the 4-wheeler, my dad and some of my uncles had come, to kind of share the moment with us there on the field. And then they decided to let me drive the 4-wheeler by myself, and they would all pile up in the back of the truck and let me drive back to the hunting club, with my deer on the 4-wheeler by myself. Just a cool day, just awesome. Well, I've always put my deer and stuff on Facebook, and on social media platforms and stuff. And, we don't do it really to brag, but we're proud of what we do. We're proud of that big fish we catch, the big buck, the turkeys, everything else. We're proud of that. And to a point, we do want to show off just a little bit. And who's going to listen to us other than fellow outdoorsmen? Well, what I started seeing after I had surgery and my mind was all kind of messed up, and I'm just in bad physical shape. The only thing I was thinking of was all of my memories and past things that I thought, there was a possibility I might not ever get to do again. So suddenly all I had were memories rather than, future plans and expectations. It kind of changed my entire way of thinking about everything I had ever done. which, you know, it does when you almost die. I mean, it's a horrible experience and the best experience you ever have all at the same time. But getting on social media, this is the first thing that I began to notice that I had never really noticed before. Whereas used to, I would get on there and I would search and see, you know, do I know these people? You know, who, man, somebody shot this monster out at Okmulgee, or man, somebody shot a monster out in Marion County or Fayette, you know, like, well, after surgery, what I began to do was I started looking for the old men, you know, and the little kids, where it was like, oh, that guy's 80, you know, and he just shot a 4-point. You know, that's awesome. Or you know, this kid is 8 and just killed his first buttonhead. You know, well, something that I began to notice, because I had never really paid a lot of attention to these posts, was all of the comments. I mean, you've got a man on here that's 80, 85 years old and just shot a 4-point out of his truck window, you know, parked on a power line behind his house. Well, everybody on there is losing their mind, you know, about how easy it is to deer hunt out of your truck window, or how if he had let that buck walk, one day he'd be a bigger one. And that's the problem that we have in this state with deer hunting. Well, you know, let me tell you something. That could be that guy's last deer he ever gets to hunt. And honestly, unless you own the land that borders that man's property, what does it matter to you, and whose business is it of yours to ever criticize what he's going to do legally? That deer, you're not going to have opportunity to come to his property and hunt that buck in 2 years or 5 years or whenever you think you might. You know, so leave the man alone. And what gets me even worse are the children. I mean, these kids, you've got kids on there, they'll be 12 years old that just shot their first 6-point like I did. Well, back then, you know, we didn't have social media. Back then, I got to drive a 4-wheeler back and have 30 guys at the hunting club grab me up, shake my hand, you know, give me a hug, high five, whatever. Well, nowadays, that kid, the first thing on his mind is going to be social media. Don't think it's not. And when he gets that buck on the ground, what he's going to want is a picture, and he's going to want his daddy to put it on Alabama Deer Hunters or Alabama YMA Hunters or any of these other big groups and forums, or all of them for that matter, where they can show everybody, show the world what they just did and share this experience that they cannot hold inside of themselves. And when they do, you know, their daddy's going to share it. Now, you know, some of the dads, they may not even get on social media much. Maybe they do. But the fact is, when they get home that evening, they've got to get that deer caped out, you know, clean, get all that stuff taken care of, get home, take a shower, and they're all going to pile up on the couch that evening, either at the hunting camp or back at their house. And after all the phone calls and all the congratulations are over with, that little boy's going to say, "Daddy, how many likes do I have on my post?" Well, his daddy's going to get on there, and he may tell him, and he's going to read the comments. And the whole time he's reading those comments, he's going to get more and more angry about things that were said about his little boy and things that were said about him as what he's teaching his little boy about trophy management. All right? Now, don't think that there's not going to be a little boy sitting in his daddy's lap reading those comments before his dad ever even thinks to filter them through first. Okay? Don't think that there's not going to be a little boy with his own cell phone neither. It's going to be getting on there reading them himself. And what y'all are doing is y'all are telling these 12-year-old, 10-year-old kids, 15, 16-year-old kids for that matter, that what they're doing is so insignificant that they might as well just stay home. All right? And that's what we're going to end up with, if that's what we want. All right? Now, this crazy, screwed up world that we've got, where we are blaming the government, we're blaming our bosses at work, we're blaming hunting club presidents, we're blaming timber companies, whoever is in control of what we do, we're blaming everybody else for all these problems we've got, and then turning right around with all of our frustration and anger and throwing it right back at that 12-year-old kid that just shot his first buck. All right, now, if I were 12 years old and I just killed my first 6-point and I got on social media and read half of this stuff that folks are putting on there about what is harvested, it would have made me nauseated, okay? It would have made me upset. It would have hurt my feelings. It would have made me not want to ever go hunting again, possibly. I surely wouldn't have shot another small buck, which I've probably killed 20 or 30 of in my life, getting the bugs worked out so that I could kill, these 17 deer that I have on the wall now that I've become a trophy hunter. Okay? And this doesn't just go for the hunting community either. I'll share another story with y'all. Not too long ago, several months ago, a man down in, I want to say it was in Orange Beach, could be wrong, caught a really nice cobia from the beach there by one of the passes. Now, this was a keeper cobia, okay? It measured legally, it was a keeper fish. The man was from Lord knows where, had come down there on vacation, caught this nice fish. It was all over social media. He was fired up, sharing it everywhere. Every comment on there just about that was from a local from down there at the beach was talking about that. This is why all of our cobia are not getting as big anymore, is problems like this guy right here coming from out of town and all these out of towners catching all these fish and keeping all of them and not throwing them back and letting them go. Well, let me tell y'all something, all right? I'm an out of towner, and the beach and that saltwater fishing is one of my favorite things and favorite places to be, okay? Well, if you've got a limit on cobia that's legal, how many cobia do you think that man has kept in his lifetime? Honestly, I guarantee he's probably never been out on a boat cobia fishing, okay? Probably has never caught a cobia before if I were just going to look at statistics. The guy's complaining about the cobia not being big enough. Y'all are out there on boats all the time, every other day, when the cobia are up under those barges, and y'all are out there flatlining them and catching one after another, just hammering them. And don't tell me that y'all don't have cobia in your freezer right now. Okay, maybe it wasn't the size the guy caught. Maybe it was a bigger one, but you still kept it. And I promise you, you keep more of them in your lifetime than that man ever will in 10 lifetimes. And it goes for everything else. Well, I went down there trout fishing back in May. Had several people. I kept a 26-inch speck that I caught, along with 3 others. I had several people telling me, man, you don't need to keep those big ones. Well, I'm sorry. I've kept 4 trout in the last 3 years. Last time I checked, the limit was way more than that per day. So until y'all give me a legitimate reason why I can't keep what I catch or kill that's legal, then I suggest you keep your mouth shut, because there are a lot of people out there that do not have the opportunity of half these people that are running their mouths, okay? And not only that, but half the people that's running their mouth are doing it out of pure jealousy, all right? I would be willing to bet you a lot of those people talking about the cobia have never caught a cobia, but the fact remains that there are kids out there, and there are 85-year-old men out there, and there are people like me who like to hunt and fish by any legal means necessary. If I go and I shoot a doe with a crossbow, I get to eat spaghetti out of that doe, okay? And I don't really care what you think about my crossbow, because every single person that shoots a crossbow gets criticized by a man with a compound. And every man with a compound gets criticized by a man with a recurve or a longbow. And it just non-stop filters down from the garbage at the top all the way to the very bottom. Okay, I do taxidermy for a living. I sit in my shop and I listen to some of the best in the business and in the hunting world. I get to sit around and talk personally with one-on-one. And I'm going to tell y'all, the guys with the least criticism for what weaponry is legal, for who decides to keep what they harvest, how many fish they keep, the guys with the least amount of criticism, they have reached the level of success that they're at because of the experiences they've had in the past. Not by harvesting monster, record class whitetails, but by harvesting numbers of smaller bucks, by learning what these bucks do, by learning to pattern them as they get older. And it's the same thing with fish. You pattern fish the same way. Growing up, you learn how to catch little yearling bass, on a trick worm or on a fluke around the weed beds around the bank. And as you get older, you start targeting 5-pounders on deep diving crankbaits on ledges. I mean, there's just a progression there. But without that learning curve, you don't have a sportsman community. There's no reason to even go on and post your pictures of what you've been able to accomplish because nobody is going to care. I would rather sit around and listen to a guy who has just harvested the state record muzzleloader buck, Michael Perry. I can sit around and talk to him, and all he wants to do is listen to me and what I might have seen the last time that I went hunting. He's already seen it all. He's done it all. He's as good as it gets. You know, he's the kind of guy that you want to learn from. But at the same time, the least critical of all of them. You know what I mean? If you want to take a crossbow, he's going to ask you when the rut time is in that zone. You know, he's not going to ask you about that crossbow. You know, it doesn't matter to him. He's worried about your success and sharing that moment with you. And guys, if we don't get back to that kind of mindset that used to exist where you sat on the porch and you talked about what you saw and what you heard and what you felt and everything that surrounds the outdoors, not just who shot the biggest buck or caught the biggest fish or the most or who won what tournament. I mean, the thing about social media is it is great to show everybody how you do it, what you did, to let those emotions out in a world where a lot of people, all you got time to do is work. Those few minutes you can share with somebody, you may not have time to go to their house. You may have to get right on here and show them on social media. And I just don't want us to lose that front porch, sit around, talk about our day mentality. I mean, it's kind of already gone to the wayside, but there's no reason why we can't bring that back. I mean, it's so much fun. And I mean, me having that brush with death, I mean, it brought me back so many years in my mind to think about what is important and where our priorities have gone in our lives to where we can get on there and post our deer, never get back on the site and just check to see who all has liked our post. You know, you don't worry about who else has done any good. You don't worry about your friends and what they did because you wish that you were them. But I mean, even more, you're getting on there and you're telling all these other people what they should be doing. You know, what kind of broadhead they should be using. Why theirs is the worst that there is. Why a 6.5 Creedmoor is so much better than a 30-06. You know, why my core lock 30-06 bullets aren't going to kill anything because they're basically harmless. Not too long ago, Southern Ground Hunting actually did a post on Facebook, kind of like a poll asking people what setups they were going to be using during deer season as far as their bow, arrow, and broadhead setups. There were not two people using the same bow, not two people using the same arrow, not even brands. I mean, like I didn't realize there was so many arrows and bows out there. I don't think there were two people using the same broadhead. And all of these people, I recognized as being guys I knew or guys I knew from social media who were very successful. I mean, they're all killers. I'm talking about super successful guys. Let somebody use what they're confident in. Same thing with a harvest. If you want to keep a limit of bluegill, then keep a limit of bluegill. When they decide to change the laws because bluegill are endangered, then we'll make an adjustment. Okay? But these laws are put in place for a reason. I mean, we whine and we gripe about this stuff changing, and it's like going to 4 turkeys this year in the state of Alabama. People talk about, this is ridiculous. I see 100 turkeys every time I go in the woods. Well, we can't all hunt our granddaddy's 80 acres, okay? So when you go back there and you kill your 5 white turkeys that you say are smoke phase, but you know your granddaddy raised their mamas and daddies several years ago in a pen, and you just went out there and killed 5 in 5 days, okay, congratulations, because that was legal. But don't tell us that there's way too many turkeys in the state of Alabama, so we need to be able to kill an infinite amount a day, all right? We've got deer season coming up here pretty soon, and right now, everybody is excited and fired up, and the posts on Alabama Deer Hunters and YMA Hunters And all the different forums are starting to pop up now where people are saying, man, look at this picture of this buck. Check out this game camera pic. You know, what setups y'all gonna use this year? Somebody give me a recommendation on a tree stand. I mean, they're starting to hit. And everybody right now is on the same page. Okay, there's no arguing yet. Everybody's trying to be helpful. As the season gets rolling, it's gonna get tough. It's going to get cold. It's going to get miserable. You're going to have day after day where you're watching people be successful and you're not. Okay? But guys, come into this deer season. Please remember that 12-year-old kid that's going to be sitting there with his daddy, checking those posts to see who all has commented and what everybody is saying. All right? Because every time y'all put something negative on there, on one of these posts, there's some little kid reading it and second guessing the decision that he made that, you know, honestly was one of the most important decisions in his entire life. And if you are a deer hunter, you know what I'm talking about. So please be respectful. Please think about, if you put yourself in their shoes, think back to your first deer, think back to your first, you know, big accomplishment in the outdoors. And ask yourself if that would be something that you would want to see as a little kid, you know, because they're going to see it, you know, and so are these 85-year-old men who, you know, may not have been able to hunt for the last 5 years because they're battling cancer or whatever. I'll go ahead and give y'all another story before I get off of here. This gentleman used to live right down the road from me. He was 86 years old. And I had always done his deer processing for him back when I was a processor. And he had asked me as he got into his 80s if it was okay if I would help him skin his deer out. He got to where he just couldn't do it by himself anymore. He just lived right down the road. So I told him that was fine. You know, whenever he harvested a deer, I would go down to his house and I would help him skin it. And over a period of years, 4, 5, 6 years, you know, as he got into his last few years, his health began to deteriorate. And it would get to where, you know, I might have to come and help him get the deer out of the field. You know, his son-in-law would go and he would plant a green field behind his house. And he would go and he would sit in his truck and he'd run the heater. You know, and when the deer would come out in the evenings, he would try to get him one. You know, the last year that he was alive, he called me and he told me, he said, Daniel, he said, you know, I can't do this anymore. He said, but I can't stop. He said, you know, it's all I've ever done. It's the thing that I've always enjoyed the most. And he said, if there's any way, he said, if I get me a deer and call you, he said, can you just go get it for me? He said, I can't hardly even get in and out of my truck anymore. And I said, yeah, you know, that'd be fine. This has been probably 5 or 6 years ago. He came to my house one night. It was about 8:30 at night and knocked on my door. I had no idea who it was. I don't get very many visitors, at least up at my house. And it was coming, the worst thunderstorm. I mean, thunder, lightning, pouring rain. I went to the door. When I opened the door, there stood this giant figure in a huge raincoat, freezing cold. And when he pulls his hood back, I noticed it was him. And I said, what in the world are you doing? He said, Daniel, he said, I've just killed me a little spike and a doe. And he said, I've got them. He said, I got them loaded up. I didn't want you to have to deal with it out here in this weather. And I've got them down there at your shop. And I was just wondering if there was any way you could take care of them for me. Well, I went down there, you know, and I'm thinking the whole time, I'm thinking, man, of all nights, of all the weather, why? You know, but I went down there, we skinned those 2 deer out, and we talked, and I drug them into my shop. Well, you know, he left, and I come inside, and I was mad. I was ill as a hornet. You know, this was before my surgery and everything, my you know, changing of my lifestyle a little bit. And my wife told me, she said, you know, I can't believe he brought those things in this weather. And I said, I can't believe he was even hunting this afternoon. I said, but, you know, I mean, I guess I'd do the same thing too if I had a food plot in my backyard. And she said, well, she said, you know, you can't be mad at him. She said, this, you know, he's old. You know, he may not be able to do this much more. And I said, you know, I said, you're right. I said, I hope that when I'm that age, you know, somebody will come and help me do the same thing. And, you know, lo and behold, I nearly didn't make it past 40. And, you know, I really started to realize that a lot of this stuff that we see on social media, whether you're 85 or 86 or whether you're 12, this could be your last chance. It could be your last deer season. It could be your last fish that you ever put in the boat. You know, that last time that you ever eat a deer burger, last time that you ever eat a fish fillet on your grill, it could be the last one, you know. So when you see some guy that just caught a keeper Kobe off the beach, you know, send him a congratulations on Facebook. Laws are put in place for a reason. And whether or not you agree with them is for you to call, you know, the state, is for you to vote on. But a man who is following the law, and I'm going to go ahead and say especially in this outdoor community where we're all supposed to be brothers and sisters, you know, and we're supposed to share God's creation with one another and how much it changes our lives. You know, y'all keep your opinions to yourself. Let's go into this deer season and try to enjoy it for what it is, you know, rather than for what we think it should be. Guys, I really appreciate y'all watching. I hope that this, you know, changes the way that some of y'all think. Pay attention to what you're doing every day. You know, don't worry so much about what's supposed to happen in the future. And be patient and look around, you know, and enjoy what God's given you. It'll make your life better. It'll make you happier. And believe it or not, you'll end up being more successful because more people are going to want to give you opportunities because you're the kind of people that they want to spend their time with. Guys, thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next time.